Hi, this is Sarah from Sarah's Hand Embroidery. For those who are new, welcome to my channel. I make videos explaining you every hand embroidery stitch in the simplest of ways. In this video, I will show you the differences between the split stitch, the split back stitch, and the chain stitch. To do that, I will be using threads of the same lengths over stitch lines of the same lengths. Yes, I'm seriously going to dissect the differences between these stitches. I will talk more about it, but first let me start with a split stitch. Begin by making a single straight stitch. Emerge back by splitting the stitch somewhere midway and go ahead to make the next stitch. Continue this process. I'm using all the 6 strands, so the splitting is more sensible. You do not have to split the thread or stitch into exact halves as long as it is split, which means you cannot work this stitch with one strand of thread, obviously. Working with 2 strands means splitting the thread into halves, but it will look very scanty. So my suggestion would be to use at least 4 strands to make the stitch look good. Also, threads like the pearl cotton or any other non-divisible thread is not something you want to use unless you double the thread and you split between them. Now, though this process looks pretty straightforward, I find it a bit difficult to split the stitch from behind to emerge out from the fabric, making it a not so favorite of mine. Going by the technique it uses, it belongs to the stem stitch family. So what is this stitch good for? It is an excellent stitch to make fillings and even seamless outlines. Textures, especially hair-like texture, can be beautifully made with the stitch. Depending on the number of strands that you use, the stitch can come out looking seamless and smooth. With a little practice, you can master this stitch, especially on curves and corners. So the stitch is done. Now, let's see what the split back stitch is. I'm using the other thread of the same length in 6 strands again. You make a straight stitch about 1 centimeter long. Then, come out a little ahead on the stitch line and turn your needle to go back in through the stitch. Come back again a little ahead on the stitch line to continue the process. So basically, the process is pretty much like the back stitch, but instead of going through the previous stitch point, you are going through the stitch itself. For this reason, it belongs to the back stitch family. Just as for the split stitch, it will not make sense to work the stitch with 1 strand, and 2 strands would mean a scanty effect. A minimum of 4 strands is what I would suggest, but personally, I love working the stitch with all the 6 strands. The splitting does not have to be an exact half all the time. So what is this stitch good for? Everything that the split stitch was good for. You can use it to make fillings, seamless outlines, and beautiful texture. Personally, I prefer the split back stitch over the split stitch because it is so much easier to control. I have more control over where I'm splitting. I would prefer this stitch over the split stitch any day. But there might be a catch. Wait till the end to know what it is. This stitch is done and I'm going to add 1 more stitch into the picture, the chain stitch. Why so? Because many a times the visual effect of these 2 stitches are similar to the chain stitch because of the splitting of the thread that happens. So knowing a bit about the chain stitch will be an added advantage. For those who don't know any of these stitches, this is a good time to learn them. Begin the chain stitch by emerging from the back of the fabric, then pass the needle through or close to the stitch point to come out a little ahead, loop the thread under the needle and pull out completely to create a loop. Continue this process to make a continuous linked chain of loops. I began the stitch with 6 strands, but I changed to 3 strands. The reason being that the chain stitch doubles the thread and using 6 strands would mean a very thick line. The length of the thread remains the same though. Now, as you can see, the chain stitch follows a totally different technique, the loop technique. This means you are not really splitting the stitches, but you are doubling the threads and it is into equal half. The chain stitch is also great for filling and outlines, but the texture will slightly differ. What do I enjoy the most? Chain stitch is great, but I would still prefer the split back stitch for fillings and keep the chain stitch for outlines, perhaps. Now that all the stitches are done, just check out how similar they look to each other. You could also notice that the stitches differ in their lengths. Now let me take this time to tell you that your support means a lot to us. You can do so by becoming our patron or buying one of our ebooks. The links are in the description. If you like our videos, you can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. I'm looking at the reverse of the stitches now. They reveal such a different story. The split stitch has a neat back stitch-like reverse. The split back stitch is a thread guzzler, and the chain stitch is pretty neat too. That shows who takes up most of the thread. The split stitch is decent, but the split back stitch eats quite a bit more. The chain stitch is the most economical because remember that we have used only 3 strands of thread to stitch that bit. We still have 3 more strands left. So if you are trying to save thread, go for the chain stitch. If you are looking for a peaceful stitching, go for the split back stitch. If you want the best of both, the split stitch is good. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and drop me a comment. Bye.